morning and welcome to the third part of sentences, phrases and clauses. In our previous two parts, we discussed sentences and phrases. In this class, we will discuss clauses. We have already discussed the topic clauses in our starting topics. Today, we will go through the rules and the kinds of clauses. So, let us begin our topic with clause. Clause, a group of words that contains subject and a predicate and is part of a sentence. A group of words that contains a subject and a predicate and is part of a sentence. Example, the girl is playing. Example, the girl is playing. In this sentence, the girl is playing. Girl is the subject and playing is the verb. In this sentence, the girl is the subject and is playing is the verb. Girl is the subject and playing is the verb. So, the part girl is playing is a clause because it has both subject and predicate. Clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a predicate and is part of a sentence. Example, the girl is playing. Here, the girl is subject and playing is verb. So, the part girl is playing is a clause because it has both subject and predicate. One of the easiest way to distinguish between a phrase and clause is to understand the meaning of or the definition of the clauses. A clause is comprised of a group of words which includes a subject and a finite verb. The subject of a clause can be mentioned or hidden. The verb not be apparent and distinguishable. So, a clause is comprised of a group of words which includes a subject and a finite verb. The subject of clause can be mentioned or hidden. The verb not be apparent or distinguishable. Here, one of the easiest way to distinguish between a clause and a phrase is that a clause is a set of words that makes complete sense and does not require any additional or helping words to complete it. So, a clause is a group of words which have their own subject, predicate, finite verb and may or may not be independently meaningful. An independent clause is as good as a sentence. Let us see the example. He is intelligent but he is selfish. He is intelligent but he is selfish. I want to come but I have some work to do. Here in these two sentences, the group of words he is intelligent, I want to come make complete sense and independently and are good examples of independent clause. So, he is intelligent but he is selfish. I want to come but I have some work to do. Here the sentence is having subject and predicate and it is also an example of independent clause. Here he is intelligent, I want to come make complete sense independently and are good example of independent clause. It also functions as a member of a complex or compound sentence. It also functions as a member of complex and compound sentence. Example, I graduated last year. Here in this sentence, one clause sentence is. This is one clause sentence. I graduated last year. So it is one clause sentence. When they came here, they saw him. Here two clause sentences. When they came here, they saw him. When they came here, they saw him and they greeted him. Here three clause sentences. So it also functions as member of complex or compound sentences, or it may be classified into three, that is simple, one clause sentence, two clause sentence and three clause sentence. So it also functions as a member of a complex or compound sentence. Example, I graduated last year. When they came here, they saw him. When they came here, they saw him and they greeted him. Clauses are mainly of two types. Clauses are of mainly two types, that is independent clause or dependent clause. Independent clause or dependent clause. Independent clause. An independent clause functions on its own to make a meaningful sentence. An independent clause functions on its own to make a meaningful sentence. It can also be joined to other dependent or independent clauses to make complex sentence. An independent clause functions on its own to make a meaningful sentence. It can also be joined to other dependent or independent clauses to make complex sentence. Three things to know about the independent clauses, and these are: they have a subject. Independent clauses have subject. They have an action or predicate. They express a complete thought. Here we will have to remember three things about the independent clauses, and these are: they have a subject, they have an action or predicate, they express a complete thought. So independent clause is a clause that functions on its own to make a meaningful sentence. It can also be joined to other dependent or independent clauses to make complex sentence. 3 points to remember or to identify the independent clauses are: they have subject, they have an action or predicate, they express a complete thought. Example. Let us see the example. Taru is playing with toys in her room. Here Taru is playing with toys in her room. Taru is an independent, that this one is an independent clause. It contains subject Taru and verb phrase is playing. The clause expresses a complete thought and stands on its own as a sentence. Similarly, there are other sentences. Here first sentence, Taru is playing with toys in her room. Here subject is Taru and verb phrase is playing. The clause expresses a complete thought and stands on its own sentence. Here are some examples of the same. Next, I will wait to buy a car. Here subject I, verb phrase will wait. And the clause expresses a complete thought. Pradanya will be late for the party. Here subject is Pradanya and verb phrases will be. Next, she did it anyway. Subject is she and verb is did. We still had a good time. Here subject is we and verb is had. She needs to practice more. Subject is she and verb needs. The cake burned because I forget to take it out of the oven on time. Here subject is cake and verb is burn. So all these sentences are independent clause and they contain subject and verb, phrase and verb, and they express a complete thought and stands on its own as a complete or good sentence. So for independent clauses, we know that there is subject and predicate and verb, infinitive verb. Here example, subject Taru, I, Pradanya, she, we, she, the cake. And the verb, phrases or verb is playing, will wait. Here is playing, will wait, will be. All these are verb phrases. These are verb phrases. And she did it. This is subject and did is verb. We still had a good time. Here had is verb. She needs to practice more. Here needs is verb. The cake burned because I forget to take it out of the oven on time. Here burn is verb. So these all sentences are having subject and verb. So let us move to our next, that is dependent clause. Dependent, as its name shows that it depends. So dependent clause, a dependent clause or subordinate clause is a clause that cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. Dependent clause or subordinate clause is a clause that cannot stand alone as a complete sentence because it does not express a complete thought. A dependent clause is a clause that provides a sentence element with additional information but which cannot stand as a sentence. Dependent clause. A dependent clause or subordinate clause is a clause that cannot stand alone as a complete sentence because it does not express a complete thought. A dependent clause is a clause that provides a sentence element with additional information but which cannot stand as a sentence. And for independent clause, we have read that independent clause functions on its own to make a meaningful sentence. Independent clause can also be joined to other dependent or independent clauses to make complex sentence, but dependent clause is a clause that cannot stand alone as a complete sentence because it does not express a complete thought. A dependent clause is a clause that provides a sentence element with additional information but which cannot stand as a sentence. The different types of independent clauses are noun clause, adjective clause, adverbial clause. We have already discussed all these three types thoroughly or in detail in our topic clauses, in our previous topic clauses. So here we will discuss only the difference between the sentence, phrases and clauses. So if you want to go through these three, noun clause, adjective clause and adverbial clause in detail, you should check the other topic or the class that we discussed in our previous sessions related to the clauses. So here in this session we are discussing about the sentence, phrases and clauses. So we have read that independent clause and dependent clause in this session, and we know the definition of the clauses. For the examples of independent clauses, we are having these sentences. Go through these sentences thoroughly to make sure about the definition of independent clauses. And now let us see the examples of dependent clauses. First, the boy who had saved the child from the fire was rewarded for his bravery. Who had saved the child from the fire? Who had saved the child from the fire? Dependent. So, the boy was rewarded for his bravery. Complete sense, independent clause. And here, who had saved the child from the fire is dependent. So, we have read that dependent clause gives extra information and it can't stand by its own. So, the boy who had saved the child from the fire was rewarded for his bravery. Here in this, who had saved the child from the fire is dependent clause. Next, the ring was found where the thief. The ring was found where the thief had stolen the jewelry. Here, the ring was found. The ring was found is a complete sense, and here, where the thief had stolen jewelry is a dependent clause. So, in the complete sentence, this is independent and this is dependent clause. The ring was found where the thief had stolen the jewelry. So, where the thief had stolen the jewelry. Next, we reached the theatre just when the play had started. We reached the theatre just when the play had started. Just when the play had started. So here in this sentence, we reached the theatre is the complete sentence or independent, and here just when the play had started is dependent clause. So just when the play had started. Next, although Geeta was very upset, she acted as if nothing had happened. Here, although Geeta was very upset. So, although Geeta was very upset, here dependent clause, and she acted as if nothing had happened. So, we know that for dependent clauses or subordinate clauses, we have some subordinate conjunctions that join the sentence and make the complete sense, because the dependent clause can't stand by their own. So here we are having some conjunctions, subordinate conjunctions. Next, nobody knows what caused the accident. Nobody knows is the complete sense or independent, and what caused the accident is dependent. So, what caused the accident? So, here are some examples of dependent clauses, and these are the examples of independent clauses. Go through these examples and the definitions of independent and dependent clauses thoroughly to understand the difference between phrases and clauses, and the topic sentence, phrases and clauses makes clear that the sentence is a group of words or phrases, and here in this we have read the difference between phrases and clauses. In clauses we read the one clause sentence, two clause sentence and free clause sentence, and we read independent and dependent clauses also. So go through these definitions, rules and examples thoroughly to understand the difference between sentences, phrases and clauses. Practice yourself. Thanks a lot.